The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Next, we would like to hand over to Judge Lavigne to continue putting questions to the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The interpreters have requested that I ask you to observe a pause between the end of a question and the start of an answer. This is for technical reasons, as there is a slight lag between the interpretation and the source language. Let us get back to our topic from before the break in the situation in Phnom Penh before the war. In 1975, and my question centers on two specific points. The first is information that you may have received regarding how the Khmer Rouge were treating people in the liberated zones. Mr. Witness, did you ever hear about the transfer movement of populations before 1975? Did you ever hear about the establishment of a policy of collectivization of lands or the establishment of cooperatives? Had you heard about villages or houses and residences being sacked and pillaged and set alight? Did you hear about the capture of Udong? What can you tell the chamber about how the Khmer Rouge were treating the people before 1975?
Response. This morning, I already testified that from 1970, since May 1970, when I talked about Bok Nao, which is near Kampong Cham, we know very well that when the Khmer Rouge soldier captured a village, then the houses in the village would be set on fire, when the commune chiefs would be executed, and people would be evacuated to the forest. And a Cambodian, Ed Saran, wrote a book about the soul of Khmer in 1972. And in my book, Cambodia Year Zero, I did not write any new things other than following the accounts from that writing. And from 1973, I knew the people in Kampong Thom very well because there were Christians in the area, and Lono soldiers attacked Kampong Thom and liberated about 400,000, rather 40,000 villagers. And people were evacuated, as I told you, when the heads of the groups were killed, and this thing is not new. That happened already since 1973, and this was well known to everyone. However, we should also be aware that in 1973, in order to forgive the Khmer Rouge, the lower level cooperatives were established so that people could work in cooperatives to produce rice for the population. And people who should be punished could have been Kissinger and Nixon.
Une autre question concernant le...
The question concerns the context of corruption. The war was escalating. Many people were victimized. And there are probably those who also were able to profit from the war. What can you tell us about that? I believe that you have already explained to us that there were several types of corruption. What kind of corruption prevailed during that particular time?
Response. For example, a governor of Battambang, Sheikh Samit, who sold rice to the Khmer Rouge to get some money. For example, Commander Sostan Fernandez, who sold weapons to the Khmer Rouge. So the Lon government finally would be defeated because of this. However, corruption in Lon regime was less than these days' corruption.
Est-ce qu'on peut dire que la...
Can it be said that the population of Phnom Penh had daily concerns over their survival? Were the people of Phnom Penh very desirous of peace and security and obviously greater justice? Within that particular context, is that why the popularity of the Khmer Rouge was able to increase and why they were able to garner support for their policies? Was there hope among the Khmer, according to which everything would be all right and would eventually fall to the Khmer people?
Response. The people could not survive because they did not grow rice. They could not do their business. They received assistance from non-governmental organizations, including the humanitarian organizations. Everyone prayed that peace would prevail, and as I told you this morning, Lon had no hope for the people of Cambodia. And either I was pleased with or was not pleased with communism, or whether I liked it or not, that the Khmer Rouge would come to Cambodia to kill the population. People could see that people had no hope already living under Lon regime, and everyone shared the same feeling. For example, when it comes to corruption, some of the ghost soldiers for a battalion of the division, normally for a division there would be, in a battalion there would be 300 soldiers. And when soldiers died, perhaps 10 to 20 soldiers died, the remaining people, or when they died, the commanders would just keep the dead or the ghost soldiers on payroll.
Est-ce que le programme
Were the political platforms and policies of the Khmer Rouge and Gronk and Funk well known among the population, and what were the people's concerns or fears if the Khmer Rouge were to claim victory?
The President, Mr. Pongsho, could you please wait a moment? Please proceed when you see the red light. Response. I don't know whether people thought about the Grunk or Funk, but they knew that Sihanouk would be on their side. And on this, I would like the historians to think carefully whether Prince or King Norodom Sihanouk would be accountable, because the Khmer Rouge won the war with the support of King Norodom Sihanouk. Even on the 17th of April, the glorious day for the Khmer Rouge, I met Prince Sisawat Sirimatak near Wat Phnom. I asked him a question. I asked him what he did here. He said he was waiting for Samdech Sihanouk. So other people also had the same feeling. They believed that when the Khmer Rouge won the victory, then King Sihanouk would eventually return to Cambodia. And the Khmer Rouge knew this even much better. For example, in 1973, in February, they invited Samdech Sihanouk to the jungle in Kulen Promtep and to Kulen Mountain. And Angka tried its best to make sure that the soldiers could not see Samdech Sihanouk, because they were afraid that Sihanouk could incite them to protest against Angka. From 1973, Khmer Rouge, through what I heard, talked about Akhnuk and Miknik. They really looked down on both the king and queen since 1970, when they were visiting Cambodia.
Donc on parle bien de l'année.
So we are referring to 1973. There were concerns about justice after liberation. and particularly justice surrounding the 7 super traitors. Do you think people were persuaded that things would proceed in a peaceful and civilized manner, and that there would be no settling of affairs amongst the Khmers? Was this a general feeling, sentiment, or opinion shared among the Khmer population?
Response. People were afraid of the Khmer Rouge. They knew that Khmer Rouge mistreated villagers in countryside. They knew that there were 7 traitors, including Serit Matak, Longboret, System, Fernandez, and other people I don't remember. But that was not the information that people believed, because they just were afraid of the Khmer Rouge.
So the people were expecting the worst.
In my opinion, yes. They were very terrified of the misery that was looming. But they could do anything about it because they were the Khmer Rouge. The Lon Nol soldier did not have any hope at all. The President, Mr. Pongso, please hold on. The International Council, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to have some clarification from the bench. I think I've understood correctly that Mr. Pongso is a witness and that he's been asked, or will be asked, questions about the things that he has seen, has observed. However, there seems to be also questions being posed that go more to the opinion of the witness. For instance, he's been asked what the population of Phnom Penh were thinking or fearing, etc. Now, I'm very interested in what the witness has to say, but at the end of the day, it is his opinion and not the things that he actually knows. So I would like to have some clarification from the bench on how we should be approaching this particular witness.
The President. Mr. Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon to everyone. I would simply like to answer this question raised by the defense. Of course, this requires some clarification. I think we have to distinguish 2 things here. On the one hand, the witness is here because indeed he saw and he witnessed events before 1975 and up into the 6th or 7th of May 1975. But as far as we are concerned, we also want to put questions to him on his analysis of the refugee accounts that he gathered later on in Thailand, in France, and elsewhere. And in this regard, this is not a simple witness, but we're speaking here about an analyst who is going to be able to shed light on what he saw and to be able to analyze the refugee account. So I think we have to distinguish 2 things here, and I would like the Chamber to shed some light on this and to confirm to me that I am taking the right stance here.
May I briefly reply, Mr. President? As far as I'm concerned, the word analyst is not a legal term. It's either a witness or an expert. I mean, I could imagine there are circumstances to consider Mr. Pongso an expert, but then it has to be a separate formal decision. Right now, he's a witness, and the word analyst doesn't mean anything to me, at least not in this courtroom.
The President. I hand over the floor to Judge Civil Cartwright to give direction and respond to the request by the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chie. Judge, please.
Yes, thank you, President. The Chamber confirms that Francois Panchaud has been called as a witness, and as such it is for the Chamber to determine not only the relevance of the questions that are put to him, but their probative value. His testimony has been informed to some degree by his writings, but of course they are based on his personal experiences. But we do not consider him to be an expert in the technical sense that it would be used in this courtroom. So I realise that this is not perhaps a black and white answer for you, but we will deal with any concerns if they do arise out of the examination of this witness. Thank you, President.
The President. Thank you, Judge. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to Judge Jean-Marc Lavange to resume your line of questioning to the witness.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to get back to events that you witnessed directly. And first of all, I would like to have a few explanations on the locations you spoke about this morning. You spoke about the church that was very large. You spoke about the Phnom, and you also spoke about what was translated in French as the municipality. So back then, can we say that the church was the Phnom Penh Cathedral, that what you call the municipality was the Bishop's Palace, which today is the Phnom Penh Town Hall, and the Phnom Hotel is the Royal Hotel. Can you confirm this information?
Yes, it is correct. It is what you have just described.
And you also spoke this morning about the young people in the Monasio, a young person called Etkep Dara, it seems. And you also spoke about the Khmer Rouge soldiers that you met. So can you describe these soldiers a bit more in detail? You said that they had a horrible gaze. But can you describe these soldiers? Were they particularly young? Were some even children? And you also spoke about the Nyari, the young women soldiers. What can you say about all of this?
There are two distinct categories of militaries at that time. One group consists of young soldiers from 14 to 15 years of age. They came from the direction of Bangkok, and they were stationed somewhere behind the present municipal hall of Phnom Penh. And there is another group of soldiers. They are more mature than this group of soldiers. They were around 30 or older. They looked very fierce indeed. They had a very horrible look. They had hatred with them. If you look at their eyes, they were very fierce indeed. We did not want to get involved with them. We were simply terrified of them. They were bad people.
And you said this morning that you saw or that you experienced no physical threats, that you didn't see any bodies. But however, can we say that the Phnom Penh population was forced to evacuate the city? Did the people have any choice?
Well, it was a psychological force. It was not by physical force, actually. That's what I witnessed on the northern part of Phnom Penh. They exert psychological pressure on the people, but it was not by means of physical threat. Actually, Phnom Penh dwellers were very happy when the Khmer Rouge soldier came to Phnom Penh. They took over Phnom Penh without killing the people. I myself had been waiting for the victory of the Khmer Rouge. We thought that there would be a big and fierce battlefield of fighting in Phnom Penh, but actually there was no such fighting at all. They could conquer Phnom Penh without fighting, so people felt released at that time. So when the Khmer Rouge asked them to leave the city, they had to leave at that time, but there was no physical threat. There was only psychological sense of psychological pressures on the people, and people were willing to leave as ordered.
And this psychological pressure that you're speaking about, was it sufficiently strong for people who were in their hospital beds or people who were disabled to find enough strength to escape, sometimes in absolutely horrendous conditions?
This was a separate issue. Actually, earlier on you asked me about the population in Phnom Penh. In the morning, the next morning, the Khmer Rouge soldier evacuated the patient out of hospital. Those who resist the order, according to what I heard from others, they would throw the grenade inside the hospital. So this was the physical threat. That was different from the ordinary citizen.
And do you know what happened, for example, at the Priakit Mealia hospital? Did you see anything happening there? Did you hear about anything happening there?
I was not the eyewitness of Priakit Mealia Hospital. I only heard from others that on the last day of Lon Nol regimes, there were many wounded soldiers everywhere in the hospital. And Priakit Mealia Hospital, the Khmer Rouge evacuated the patient out of the hospital, but I was not the eyewitness of that event.
So we also spoke this morning about what happened at the French embassy, and we spoke about the mixed couples being separated, in particular Khmer husbands and Khmer wives and foreign wives, and I think there were also a few arranged marriages too to facilitate the situation of a certain number of young women. Can you confirm this?
Yes, that is true. Some family adopted some orphan to be their child too. You adopted one child as an adopted child of one family that I witnessed.
So, generally speaking, did the Khmer Rouge provide enough food, enough water to the people who were within the French embassy seeking refuge?
For people who took refuge in the French embassy was not an important issue to the Khmer Rouge. Actually, what was important to them was the Cambodian people throughout the country. Foreign nationals were not that important to the Khmer Rouge. The Khmer Rouge actually assisted us in the early days, on the first, second, third days, and then on the third day, actually, we ran out of food. We did not have any rice to eat. But later on, the Khmer Rouge distributed rice for us, and they also supplied some water to us too. And I was at that time in charge of water supply. There was sufficient water supply, and we also had sufficient rice to eat too. When the first batch of deportees left, following the 30th of April, the guard allowed us to kill the pigs around the French embassy to prepare food for people who stayed behind in the embassy.
And you said that you worked as an interpreter between the consul and the Khmer Rouge authorities he was discussing with. So who were these Khmer Rouge authorities discussing with the French consul?
Mr. Francois Bizot was the principal interpreter. And then when we left the French embassy after the 7th of May 1975, I was the interpreter for the French embassy counselor. But after that, no, I did not work as an interpreter.
And who was the person you were dealing with? Please, hold on. It might, please stop for a little while between the moment I ask the question and when you answer, because otherwise it will be difficult for the interpreters. So I was asking you the question, if you know the name of the person the consul was dealing with.
No, I do not know that counselor.
I was not asking you whether there was a Cambodian consul. I was asking whether there was a representative of the Khmer authorities who was interacting with the council. And I believe that this morning you spoke about a so-named Niem.
Comrade Nyem was the chairman of the northern part of Phnom Penh. He was actually in charge of taking care of the people in the French embassy, but he was not a political negotiator. As well as political negotiation was concerned, somebody else was in charge of that, and Comrade Nyem was the one who assisted us on the day-to-day food supply. For example, when we needed some rice to eat or water to supply to the embassy, then we would contact Comrade Nyem. But in terms of negotiation, political negotiation, somebody else was in charge. For example, on the second day and third day, there was one person who came to tell us that Excellency Khieu Samphan would like to come to meet all the people in the French embassy. But unfortunately, His Excellency Khieu Samphan was engaged in his mission elsewhere. This gentleman came to tell us such information, but I do not recall his name.
Well, in Francois Bizot's book, which is on the case file at D222/1.1, it is document now E3 2815, and the French ERN is 00237590, English 00237559, English again 00392829. I apologize, I don't have the Khmer ERN. And this is a note here that was signed by the Vice President of the Northern Front of Phnom Penh in charge of the foreigners. This person is Niem. This note is dated 25 April 1975, and the following is stated, free translation. During his meeting of 25 April 1975, the Grunk Council of Ministers decided what follows. Given that the diplomatic relations with the other countries are not yet re-established, because the Grunk is still endeavoring to bring stability to the country, the Grunk has decided to invite all of the foreigners still residing in Phnom Penh to leave the country as of the 30th of April 1975. And when later the situation will be stabilized, the Grunk will examine the issue of re-establishing diplomatic ties. The Grunk has decided to take all foreigners by road from Phnom Penh to Poi Phet, and each country involved will have to take care of its own nationals as of Poi Phet. So, do you remember having seen this note or having been apprised of this note?
No, I didn't see this note. But whenever there was the term negotiation with Councillor Jean Dirac and Bizot and the Cambodian counterpart, there was such a discussion. But Comrade Nyem was not a senior cadre. He was a low-ranking cadre.
Were you also apprised of a communiqué from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Grunk, dated 29 April 1975, which states the following: the diplomatic missions and the consular missions, free translation, accredited by the traitorous Phnom Penh regime cannot ask for diplomatic, the regularly accepted diplomatic practices and usages. Often, during the 5 years of our war of national liberation, the Grunk stated that it would not accept the legacy of the Phnom Penh traitor regime, and thus it is not in charge of not responsible for the deeds of this regime. So this is a document that is indexed as D359/1/1.56, and this is a document ERN E3/1772.
No, I do not know this particular document.
Alors je précise.
I will specify that this document was also released by the NUFK, by the mission of the NUFK in Paris, document D59/1/1.156. And this morning, you were asked if, regarding the Cambodian figures who sought refuge at the French embassy, if any negotiations took place regarding them. And you answered that no negotiations had taken place. Was it because there was nothing to negotiate? Was it because the Khmer Rouge did not want to talk?
That's true. There was no negotiation whatsoever at that time. The Khmer Rouge, in smaller troops, they carry with them AK rifle. They call for the French embassy to surrender the 7 super traitor. I actually was staying back behind inside the embassy's compound. I was not the eyewitness of the event, but that's what I heard.
Alors pour
Do you know if there were telegrams concerning that situation exchanged between the Consul of France and the French authorities in Paris?
Response. I think there was a book. I don't remember the title of that book, but there was correspondences with Paris allowing the 7 super traitors to be expelled from the embassy. I did not really see this, but I heard people talked about this.
Alors, je précise que nous avons au dossier.
On the case file, there are a certain number of telegrams that would have been sent and exchanged between the consul of the Embassy of France in Cambodia and Paris. They're under D59/6.2.196. French ARN is 0039 14 42. English ARN 00 48 68 89, and in Khmer 00 49 13 63 to 64. These are telegrams that describe the list of people taking refuge in the embassy. I'm not sure if they deal specifically with these 7 super traitors, but the name of Siri Matak is on that list. There's also a person, there's also an individual called Mam Samivan, who is the 3rd wife of a Laotian prince, Mr. Sambor, as well as Mr. Lung Nao, Minister of Health. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France is requested to do the following, subject to express order by the department. I must deliver the names of these people no later than in the next 24 hours. This is an ultimatum coming from the committee of the municipality that a list of the individuals taking refuge in the embassy be disclosed to them. the response was that it was difficult to apply the principle of extraterritoriality.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez pour autant que
Do you recall if the GRUNC had already announced that foreigners were obliged to leave Phnom Penh and that their presence would not be tolerated?
Response: by February 1975, Samdech Sihanouk asked that all foreigners leave Cambodia.
Et si je ne me trompe pas,
And if I'm not mistaken, France had officially recognized the GRUNC just 1 week prior to the fall of Phnom Penh. France was hoping that through recognition of the Royal Government Union, that the authorities would demonstrate some degree of flexibility.
Response: French government would like French people in Cambodia to leave Cambodia on the 19th of March. However, the French policy was not convincing because people trusted Prince Sihanouk and they had to wait and see.
donc vous avez expliqué
This morning, you explained that there were two convoys that were heading towards the Thai border and that the landing of two aircrafts as proposed by France had been denied. Are you aware of any other aircrafts that may have landed at Pochantong?
Response: on the 18th of April, there was a Chinese plane which was very visible landing at Pochantong Airport. I did not know or take more notice of airplanes landing in Cambodia on other days, but that was what I saw on the 18th of April. There were other planes, but I didn't take more notice.
Est-ce que vous savez si
I believe that we had talked about some of the negotiations to which Mr. François Bizot had witnessed, but France had not only proposed that aircraft be sent, but that those aircraft carry humanitarian commodities and provisions. Were you aware of the proposal to send humanitarian supplies either by France or other countries?
Response: planes would transport medicine from Bangkok. However, the airplane was packed with medicine, but Angkar of the Khmer Rouge did not welcome such assistance, and they said that the country would not need such a support anyway.
vous avez expliqué
You described your journey through several villages, and that in all of these cities and villages were empty. At the time, did you understand why those villages and towns and cities were empty?
Response. At the beginning, I didn't understand this, but later on, I learned from a cadre in Phnom Penh. It was on the 17th of April, 1975, when he said Phnom Penh was not a good place. In the city, people did not grow any vegetable or plants, so they had to, or people had to go to the countryside to grow crops, so that Cambodians by then understood the value of rice and understand the value that a human being lives on rice grain. And Mr. Ieng Sari, so far as I know, explained a lot about this in France, about the evacuation of the people who had to be transferred and they had no food, but he also said that they had to leave the city because there was no food in the city. And secondly, it was because there was lack of safety or security in the city, and they also envisaged that there would be rebellion or riots against the Khmer Rouge in Phnom Penh. However, to me, the real reason behind this is more an ideology, a kind of reason that Angkar would like everyone to return to their hometown to become real Khmer, because Khmer in Phnom Penh would be fake Cambodians. They had to move to the countryside, the home villages, to become the original Khmers. With that, Khmer Rouge organization perhaps received influence from the Chinese Cultural Revolution, the revolution that started in 1966. Mao Zedong also gathered the villagers and have them sent to the countryside to do farming. And in 1968, in May, we heard that in France, people would like to return home because they believed that city was not a good place. And Mao Zedong appreciated Pol Pot for being brave enough to expel the people from the cities into the countryside. Mao Zedong said that what he could not do could be done by Pol Pot, and he appreciated the Khmer people for being that brave. The President, thank you, Judge Lavian, and thank you, Mr. Witness. It is now appropriate moment for the adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn for 20 minutes. Court officer is now instructed to assist Mr. Witness and have him return to the courtroom when the next session resumes.
សូមក្រោកឈរ